Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 1. I think it's going to be. Lucy and I just kind of, when the universe is calling and you're trying to do stuff. And the name for this right now?
It was something Chrysalis, wasn't it?
No, sorry.
Oh,
The Facebook start opening on my other screen, start replaying everything that we're doing. So again, welcome to figuring out how to do all this live. We're still live on YouTube. I had to close the other screen. But it is the silent chrysalis, unveiling motherhood's limitless identity. Now that is a mouthful, and it may or may not change, but I want to explain it because what it is it stemmed from me searching and looking and going, what exactly is connecting moments? What am I trying to mention? I mean, what is the message about this? And when I look at it really deep and down, it's this feeling of listlessness that we've been doing all these things. We either went to university, got our jobs, did our things, and got to that Disney version of having our family. Whatever that looked like for you. It doesn't matter what it looked like, if single, whatever. We got to that Disney end, right? Where you're supposed to have that happily ever after. But then the question is, now what? And it keeps nagging at you. And the more you try to push it down, and as I was trying to figure this out, I was drawn to this YouTube TED Talk, and it re-brought up the Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan, which is from 1963, so exactly 60 years ago, where she starts to identify this problem of the question that has the problem that has no name. And this problem being that all these suburban housewives are now put in their little boxes of the house in their little cars, and we're no longer doing things in community. And so we feel this loneliness, this belonging, this wanting more. But at the same time, we have these families, we have all these things. How can we even expect or want more? We shouldn't. We should be just content, happy, grateful for where we're at. And so fast forward 60 years later, I don't think the problem's gone away. From then, we've added jobs and we've had other things. Now we've made the problem maybe even bigger because we're in the problem of busyness, that we're so busy that we don't even have time to think because we're running from our jobs or from our activities or the kids. And we schedule everything in for the kids, but we forget about ourselves. And that's what this is all about, is this silent chrysalis is where if we're feeling like that, we have this veil over us. And if we're feeling like this, and what this whole concept and thing is do, how do we get to that limitless identity? How do we become those butterflies that feels fulfilled in what we're doing? And for me, I was so afraid to even admit that. Or the thoughts that kept going in my head is, if I do this, what am I going to take away from my family? What is my family going to lose because I'm not doing everything for them and being that self-martyr and doing that? I never, ever thought, what would I give my family? And that's where I want to change that perspective, is what are we going to give our families by becoming our limitless identity? But again, the word limitless is overwhelming, because when we look at it, we're like, how do we figure that out? And that's why I'm bringing Lucy on here and to do this, because we do it through community. We do it through conversation. We do it because Lucy's going to ask me questions. I'm going to ask her questions. It makes us dig deeper. And when we don't have that support to dig deeper, we're stuck there again in that silent chrysalis, feeling we're alone. We have nowhere to go. And so that's why everything that we do, the coaching, everything is about awakening that in each other and realizing that even as I pick up this book or another self-help book or stuff, I can still do all activities. Honestly, unless I have an outside objective view looking at it, I cannot dig as deep. Or is it even as fun? Because we're going to sit here and laugh and chat and have fun doing the dark work. And that's what this is all about. And so I welcome Lucy onto us, who we have been working together. We came together doing her podcast. We just felt fast friends. And we both have sons named Liam, and there were just so many different connections. And that, I think, is what it is all about, is finding the people that connect in the space that you're in right now that help you grow deeper. And that's what we want to do. And so thank you so much for joining me today, Lucy, in episode 1.
It was always my pleasure to sort of connect with you, Michelle. and, further the conversation and normalize what happens to us as mothers, and especially as we go into midlife. Now, the two of us, I'm a little bit more advanced in my midlife. I'm 50. And that's why when you said, oh, it came out in 63, in my head, I'm going, that was 10 years before I was born. And then you go, that was 60 years ago. I'm like, well, shit. Yes, I know I'm 50, but when you put it in that context, you're like, oh, shit. But, it's through having these conversations and really normalizing what we're going through. So my kids I consider them adult. Well, they are adults. They're 21 and 23. And as I said, I'm 50. Your kids are still at home. Well, one of mine is still at home, but it's an adult relationship. I'm not parenting them. That, yes, they still need me, but I'm not responsible for them. Whereas you still have 3 at home that you are 100% responsible for, and that, yeah, their schedule is going to take precedence over what you're doing sometimes. So I think we really can offer both sides of what women may be experiencing. And for me, I have that tale of what not to do, because I hit that rock bottom, because when my kids started to get to that point where they were leaving home is when I realized, wait a second, who the heck am I? Because I had spent the previous 20 years focused solely on being a wife and mother. I never thought about who Lucy was. And that's why that, sure, the hormones, which I had no idea were going on at the time, played a massive role in it. But that's why it hit me so hard, was because I had never even stopped. I never even knew to stop and ask myself those questions, because I was so busy. I was so preoccupied. Yeah, I had kids and they had schedules, and I was working full time, and my husband had a busy career. So it's not until you come across a conversation like this, or the universe says to you, hey, no, girl, guess what? You're going to take a stop and you're going to have a look at these things. Do we even think that we should be talking about these things?
I love that so much. And I love that we have the varied perspective. So on that note, my kids right now currently are 12, 10, just turned 10, and just turned 7. But one of the things that I wanted to bring forth is what you say is almost like why it's called the silent chrysalis. And it's almost like a silent awakening, because we keep having that voice in our head, right? You keep having those thoughts. If you're listening to us right now, I'm sure you're not alone, where you're like us, where you've had those thoughts like, is this it? Is there not more? What am I supposed to be doing? Like, why do I feel restless? Why am I feeling depressed? Why is this not enough? And it's not enough because we're not having that connection. We're not having those deep conversations anymore. Have you been you're probably having different conversations than I have, but it's sometimes when you're just like, for instance, at my daughter's swim meet, like you're talking about the weather or the next swim meet or stuff, and you're missing out on those deep, who am I conversations, and we're not taking the time to figure that out. And so that's what all this is about, is that we're working towards answering that question, who am I really? And how has motherhood shaped that? But that doesn't mean I have to be limited to just being a mom. That's part of who I am, not all of who I am. And for so long, we're like, that has to be all, and we can't do this. We have to do this by ourselves.
I'm going to say it's a part of who we are. It's a role that we're playing. But if you really dive into your authentic self, then your authentic self is going to say that it's a role that you're playing because of who you are, is loving and nurturing and caring. And you know what I mean? So I think, again, and I'm going to throw a level of woohoo in here, because I really see that that's where I've been pulled to over the last 7-8 years. And I really see that trend, that it's happening to women in midlife. Is it more and more that question of purpose? It's coming forward because it's what the universe needs. It needs us to be connected with that authentic self and who we are, and see who we really are beyond those labels that we apply to ourselves. And I think the easiest way to put it is that if we acknowledge that we are all spiritual divinities here, having a human experience in a female body, and remove all labels.
I love that. And I love how you said the universe is calling to us, because even in 2009 at the peace conference, it was Dalai Lama that said, the Western woman's going to save the world. We're going to shift that paradigm. And we're going to do that as I believe from listening to Dr. Bolian, who creates who has the premise of the million circles, is when we come together in circles and support each other in grace and lift each other up and listen to each other and witness each other and help each other become our best inner selves, that this shift, that it's going to shift into our kids, shift into our families, and create that space that we are to make that paradigm shift. And again, it comes back to the energy that we're giving and feeling from those around us and going towards it. Because when we are being our true authentic selves, you feel more alive. You're sending off more positive energy, and then you're attracting it back. You're attracting like more activities with your kids. You're attracting people to you who help bring that out more. And so the more that we keep doing that, and so having these conversations and find the people that help put us in our proximity to do that for each of us, and whatever your gut guides you to listen to that.
And it is. And, you know, I think the authentic conversation is the element that we have been missing as moms. And earlier you spoke about those, you know, conversations you have at swim meet, and it's like, how's the weather and that, and those relationships are fine. Because there are a lot of people out there you just do not want to have these conversations with. There are a lot of people out there that are not capable of having these conversations because the concept of a spiritual awakening hasn't come into their realm of thinking. So those swim meet meetings, conversations, that's fine. You know, for me, they were chit-chatting with the mom on the park bench while my kids played at the park. Those are fine. But I think where we're really, really missing is those deep, authentic conversations, those conversations that were just a natural part of those tribal communities that we lived in. And I'm not, you know, you have to go back thousands of years in ancient civilization to really understand how some of these, you know, how some of our communities evolved at that time. Is it you had your younger females, you had your mothering females, you had your elder, wiser females, and they all played their role in the tribe. And it was that sharing of information. There's a reason why the men went out to hunt. There's a reason why the women stayed at camp, or whatever you want to call it, with raising the families and tending to the fires. There's a reason for that. But as you spoke to, you know, now we're all living these suburban lives. And if you look back to the 60s, not that I have any firsthand knowledge, but certainly from watching TV and films from that period, is that you did see the women who were playing the role. And that what did they do in the afternoon when the kids were at school? They had these bridge games where it was an excuse to get together and drink. Which is fine. I'm a fan of my red wine. But I think what they were missing is that authentic connection and conversation. And, you know, I'm going to say the movie I'm thinking of is The Help, where this one woman would get together with these, who was having the bridge game that day or that week and all of that. And it was all about, you know, that surface level conversations about what your husbands were doing, where you're going on vacation, how great your kids are. And you could really see how women were missing who they really were. They never had that opportunity. And I think that's part of the spiritual awakening that we're going through, is that we're being called to reconnect to what we had thousands of years ago.
I just love how you compliment me. And I agree, like the swim conversations, like I'm not trying to say that that's not okay. What I would like, as you were saying, what I'm saying is like, some people are using that, saying that that's their connection.
That's their only connection. Yeah.
That counts as their connection. So I just want to bring that awareness out as we talk. And I love that you bring that and you gave all the details I needed before I even like made that point. But it's that we do need that genuine connection with the people that we are, that work for us, but that we're looking for that. And when we think that just having these casual conversations and stuff is enough connection, or we go out and have drinks or whatever, but we're not going deeper, and we feel like we're doing all the things, we're scheduling the dinners and doing all these things and getting play dates and stuff, but we're still missing that deeper connection that we strive for. And that's why I want to kind of bring that awareness to is, does that resonate with you listening right now? Do you feel like you're missing that? And then this is the question of, and then we're looking at how do we go about getting that? And it's not that any of this connection or things are bad. It's looking for the people that we do want to have that deep conversation with, and how to do that so that we do feel a little bit more fulfilled, and helps us figure out what is our purpose? What is it that makes us feel fulfilled? I mean, if I hadn't started down that route, I definitely would never start connecting mamas. And I think also from that is becoming that role model for our kids and the people around us, that now I see. I mean, my son started his own little entrepreneur business doing microgreens because of the stuff like he's seeing me do and things. And so they don't care what we say, they care what we do. And so we want to be those role models for them. And we get to do that by doing a community, by finding out that connection and saying these things out loud. Because again, it's that silent part when we just keep pushing those feelings down.
And I think it comes down to, we got to cut the bullshit and admit, we have to admit, I don't know who I am. It's taken me, like I said, I just turned 50 in May. It's taken me this long to figure out who Lucy is. But because of my journey, I can see in my kids, they're my oldest, he went on a job interview yesterday, and he called me after. He's like, "Oh yeah, that was crap." I'm like, "Oh no, what happened?" He goes, No, it's a good thing, because I realized the job I was applying for, the job that I thought should be applying for, doesn't resonate with me. He goes, "It doesn't make me happy." And he goes, "So that's not what I'm going to do." And he said, and he told me about when he's in flow. And I'm like, and flow, for anybody that's not familiar with the term, that's when you're doing an activity that you truly love and time passes in minutes, not hours. And he's told me about when he feels that he's in a flow state and how he's going to use that to create an income, but he's just going to find a job to pay the bills so that it's not going to take too much of his creative energy and that he can focus on his flow. So he's,
Love that.
Oh shit, was he 24? He's 24 and he's already figured that out. And I'm like, dude, I'm jealous. You're in your mid 20s and you figured that out. I said, it's taken me this long. So I can 100% say that by doing this work on yourself and spending this time for yourself, how that can translate to your kids. I can see it.
100%.
So it's harder. It might be harder for you because your kids are still grade school, but you're seeing with your Liam how he's taking he's taking that courage from you to step out and do these things. He's taking that courage for himself to pursue his own interests.
Well, I also have to admit, like, and this is where it comes into play, is the courage comes both ways. Because like even a couple of days ago, sitting at the kitchen table going, okay, I can't do this anymore. I just need to find a job. My 10-year-old looks at me and goes, Mom, don't give up. When you're rich and famous, to be so thankful you didn't stop. You kept going. Like you get the pep talks from them as well, because you've been giving it to them so long that it becomes reciprocal, because we are human. We're going to go through those ebbs and flows, and they're there to remind you and be that mirror, because you've been putting that mirror up to them and helping them be their best self. And then they're going to remind you, like, don't give up, just keep at it. Like, come on, Mom, what's next? What do you need? And she was like, just beaming, like, don't do it. And I can see that already from like the fact that she has that already and just so confident in herself. And even we were at tennis today and they were playing like duck, duck, goose. And then they had to go run up and do the thing. And she's one of the older ones there. And I could see it all. I already knew before it happened, when she got picked, she was going to go get one of the boys because none of the boys had been picked yet by any of the girls. And then after she did, that was what she did. And then she comes over to me afterwards, and Lily was a little mad. And she's like, Bella didn't pick me. And then Bella was like, I had to be fair. I had to pick some of the boys. I was the only girl who was going to do that. And I want to let everyone else be partaken. And that's what we see when we start going towards what we desire, is we see the effects it has. We can see it through them as well. And then it becomes more reciprocal because we're human. We're all going to make mistakes. I'm still going to yell at times, and they're going to call me out on it, and I'm going to go apologize, and we're going to keep working through it. But it doesn't seem to last as long as it used to. They're like, you're so much more calm than you ever were before. You're not yelling half as much. Like, you just, and I have to admit, it's been rough with the little one, like just tantrums after tantrums after tantrums. But it's like walking away when you need to, centering, then coming back and trying again, because they need to see that. And at times I can't take the tantrum. I got to walk away, and it's not, life is not going to just stop, even because you're trying to do these things. But it's like, how do we work through them more? And how do we respond more than react to things, is what we're working towards, is being in the flow. And even as you were saying about the flow, which I thought was so interesting, is again with Liam, I started doing Qigong with him and actually going through the energy and the flow and practicing the Qi and all that movement. And I invited all three kids. He was the only one that decided he wanted to. And again, it's not that forced pressure. It's just invitation. Just keep inviting till you find what works for them.
And I think you highlighted an important lesson that we need to learn as mothers, is that often we think that we have to be the leaders. We have to have all the answers, and we have to always be the cheerleader. But as you alluded to, our kids can be that for us as well. And we can learn just as much from our kids as they can learn from us. And, and again, like as my kids are older and they're mirroring back some of what I've given them. And I think you have to be a bit humble as a mom to be able to step back and listen to your kids' advice, because for so long you're in that role of, always being that counselor, that parent for your kids, that, you do have to be humble and step back and realize that, wait a second, they've learned their own stuff. They've seen something different. And, you can learn something from them. But it's, when you first start doing it, it does feel a bit weird. And you're like, I'm actually taking advice from a 20-year-old. But then you realize, well, you've raised them and you've raised them well. So of course they're going to give you good advice, because it's probably the same damn advice that you gave them.
And I want to offset on that for the moms with littler kids, is the way to learn from the kids is looking through their curiosity, because we've lost that a little bit along the ways, and they help looking at how excited they are about things. And you ask yourself, what do I like doing? And you get stuck in it. You start looking through their eyes to figure out what lights me up. And it's just being open. You don't necessarily have to have answers right away. It's like, we want answers right now. Like, I asked this question, give me an answer. But it's more that you're putting the intention out there and being open to the curiosity of figuring out, what do I like doing? And then that's where you're asking your soul to direct you and listening to your intuition. Your children, those little eyes just lighting up about all the fun things that they do. It's just that inspiration and learning from them how to get that curiosity back, because they still got it.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's been a while since I've been around little kids. So but I get to have my own curiosity. And, one of the things I've stumbled on recently is, and again, I think this relates to past lives, because I did have somebody that could, however you want to see or read the Akashic records, said that, they could see me in a past life where I was sitting at this, call it a table, with all these bottles and jars around me, and I was a healer. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. And I forgot about that until recently. My husband just built me a greenhouse. I have a terrible record for growing things. So he's built me this beautiful little greenhouse that I'm going to call See How She Grows, because it speaks to, I don't know what I'm going to grow. And it also speaks to my own sort of spiritual growth. But I started looking at what we consider weeds in our yard, because there's some really beautiful flowers that we consider weeds. And it started off with me, and I think it started with watching on TikTok them talking about a dandelion tincture. So I started making a dandelion tincture, and then I started looking around my yard and seeing, well, clovers, that's a pretty flower. I'm sure that has some healing properties. So now I'm like rummaging around my backyard like a little 5-year-old girl, picking flowers and then taking them into the house and drying them and putting them in jars. And instead of making all of these, mixes, and researching what flowers can do and, what are the medicinal benefits. And then it took me back to that memory. But I feel like a little kid on my hands and knees picking like wee tiny little white clover plants so they can take them in the house and dry. So, I can see that level of that, the innocence of a child and the creativity and just following that through.
Well, it's funny. I actually did another podcast this morning, and she was asking, who are you? And trying to get deeper. And I was trying to think of childhood memories of what I used to do. And one of the things I brought up was I love to create Charlie and Chocolate Factory games in my own chocolate factory and stuff in the basement. And she's like, that's what you are. You're like an imaginative creative. You're the Wonka of connecting mamas, like creating and having fun with it. And once you start to see it from that perspective, you're like, oh, this can be fun. It doesn't have to be like, I think that's what it is I think about, was it the book keeps alluding, the big, oh my God, my brain's going today, but getting to your genius zone. And I can't think of his name right now. And when you really start to look for that and seeing the things that actually light you up that you can enjoy doing, sitting here talking to you, it doesn't feel like work. Like it doesn't feel like those things, but it's something that needs to be done because we need to get these messages out there, and we need to reach other moms because we need to find those things that bring us alive and that we're excited to wake up in the morning to do. And again, it comes down to figuring out what were some of those things in your childhood that you enjoyed doing that you forgot about, and remaking and doing those. Again, I love how you bring the garden, the greenhouse in there. I'm the same way with the black thumb. Liam and Bill have the big garden in the back. I'm like, I go in there and take pictures of them working on it. But it's finding your genius zone and to start living in that as much as you can.
And it's not something, basically our public educational system stifles that. They do not want this in us. They want us to be able to subscribe to the 9 to 5 punch a clock, be that type of person. When I think back to when I was a kid, I was the kid in class that would just talk to everybody. Shockingly, I know. I was a talker. That's just who I am. And the other thing that I love, when we would play at home, we would either play what we call house, or I would play school, which was funny because I hated school. And I thought I was going to grow up and be a teacher. I kind of thought that for a while, but something never really resonated with me. And it's not until later on in life that verbal communicator and teacher sort of came together. And what I do on the roller coaster of midlife, and then going on to then mentor other midlife women that are trying to find their purpose. That's how my inner genius all came together. But two seemingly unrelated things that I loved as a kid have now come forward as that center of genius today. Like I say, I'm always a slow learner. I'm 50. It's taken me this long to figure my shit out. But it just goes to speak that you're never too old. You're never too old to figure this out.
And it's funny because, yes, I actually did become the teacher because I wasn't sure what else to do. I got the English degree and they're like, are you going to be a teacher? No, I'm not going to be a teacher. So I ended up getting my elementary degree. I was, yes. I taught high school for 8 years. I got my elementary credential. I got my elementary credential in New York. Moved back to California, struggled to get an elementary credential or elementary job, ended up teaching high school for 8 years. When we moved to Wisconsin, I struggled to transfer credentials between states, but finally did, and taught elementary school for all of 6 months because I transferred in it. They hired me in January. I stayed till June, but with 2 kids in daycare, it wasn't worth it. And I was like, it doesn't feed my soul. Like joy when the kids light up. I like seeing that. But now I see putting that together with helping moms and being able to, be that abstract teacher in terms of how do we reach our kids? How do we do all that? Like that speaks to me and bringing it all together. But I went and got my master's in education, have all that. And it's like bringing that all together. And then again, that brings in the imposter syndrome saying, well, I don't have these credentials. I'm like, and someone, another coach had MED on her, after her name. And I'm like, what is that? I don't even know what that is. It was Masters of Education. I'm like, I have those credentials and I don't even use but it's those that in us is that when you figure out what you were meant to do, all these steps led you to that without you realizing it. And so it's not that I necessarily need all these certifications or things to do this. I need to own into it. And that's what we want to do is bring out that in each of you moms out there is what is that genius? It's like, because it's there. It really is. And if you're ready to bring it out and look for it and keep continuing with us. And we're going to go on this journey because we've already gone up to like 40 minutes now. So we're going to have to end today's episode. But that's what this journey is all going to be about, is really figuring out what is each of our geniuses. How do we get there? How do we get in the mess of everything going around us? And I love that Lucy and I have both. I'm in the midst of it, and she's on the other side of like with the kids being older, so we can give you that versatile perspective. And I love how we bounce off. And as soon as she's something, yeah, I need to reframe that, or I need to redo that. And that's what we're here about, is just helping each other reframe our perspectives and grow to that fulfillment to where we feel joy in the morning, ready to get up, ready to connect with our kids, ready to do the things that we want to do during the day, not feeling like we have to do all these things. And so it's a process though of figuring that out. Because if you asked me 3 years ago, what do you want to do? Oh, and some of you might be in that, and that's okay. But if you're ready to take that next step and say, I want to figure it out, stick with us. That's what we're here for. So thank you so much for joining me today, Lucy. Any final words from you today?
Don't think when it comes to figuring out your genius or your purpose or anything like that, just remember it's a journey. It's not something you can Google and it's like, aha, there's the answer. You have to be prepared to take the journey and to appreciate the journey while you're on it, because I think a lot of people think it's something that they can find, whereas I'm going to say your genius, your purpose is something that you have to reveal.
Oh, I love that. And it's so true. And it is a journey, and journeys are not always easy, right? But I'm going to tell you, it's a heck of a lot more fun if you find some other people in the same situation that want to do it with you. And that's what this is all about, is finding the right people for you to bring out that journey. And there are going to be hard times, but it's so much more fun and so much easier when you're chatting about it and open about it and realizing we're here to say you aren't alone. We're here with you, and we've been there. We're going through it. Lucy's not done. I'm not done.
We're going to say it like it is.
Yeah. And so that's what this is all about. So you want to come back and join us and throw your questions out there, free put them in the comments. We're happy to take this in different directions. Again, just getting out there, but we want to bring the butterfly out in each of you.